Okay, let's go over that little quiz briefly. First of all, I want to encourage you to use Wolfram Alpha. Now, yes, you can use the formulas if you can figure out what kind of series this is. Like this is 3 and then 12. Well, if it's arithmetic, then the difference is 9, and the next number will be 21, but it's not, it's 48. So if you'll notice, it's got a multiplier of 4. But don't go to all that trouble when you don't have to. Why? Because you have Wolfram Alpha and you don't have to copy and paste it. You can just type it in there, but you got to type it right and don't put any spaces between the plus sign and the number or the dots. Okay. And then you click on equals. Now watch how quick this goes. It not only gives you the answer of 262,143, it gives you a sigma form of it. Now, you don't have to put 1 to 9, but that's all there is to it. I don't know. It's copying it over. And if you don't like doing that, okay. But then so many people got these wrong, or even put, I don't know how to do it. Well, okay. But you see how easy that is? You just code in those numbers, and there's the answer. Now, you got to code it in right. That's the tricky part. And because if you don't, you could be in for not very much success here. And you don't even have to say from k equals 3 to infinity. You can just do what I just did here. Sum from 3 to infinity, and Wolfram will pick n. No, it picks k because I put a k there. That's right. It sticks with that k. So there's now I've told y'all, but not everybody heard me. I don't care if you use the fraction or the decimal, but if you use the fraction is cooler. Some of you had a different answer that was equivalent to that. It was kind of like the divisor was like 1,715, and it turned out to be that. I said, give me all the digits that Wolfram Alpha gives you if you're going to use the decimal. If you're going to use a fraction, that's all you have to do. Boom. And the wavy equal sign means approximately equal to. All right. On to greater things. Page 30, that's the one you're going to use to get help. On page 30, it gives you an example of how to find the answer when you're missing the number of painters, when you're missing the number of houses, and when you're missing the number of weeks. So 2 of these will be known, and the third one will be unknown. I just called it X just for the heck of it. So that 8 times 22, workers times time, is directly proportional to the number of houses. So 8 times 22 over 17, that's this one, will appear in all 3 of these. 8 times 22 over 17. Doesn't matter left side or right side. So what's that got to be equal to? It's got to be equal to workers times time divided by work. And work is X here. So 25 times 42 divided by X. So there it is. Then you cross multiply, which means I like to find X and its partner is on the other side of the equal sign and the other side of the fraction board. So this is 8 times 22X or 8 times 22 times X. It's the same thing. Doesn't matter. Equals 17 times 25 times 42. I recommend that you don't do these little calculations and then start rounding everything off until you get to right here. Right here. You use 17. Look at it. Times 25. Look at it. 42 divided by, now you can divide it by whatever 8 times 22 is, or you can just divide it by 8 and then divide it by 22. And you get 101.42 because 101, now rounding off is still an issue with most people. They just either get lucky and get it right. It says right here, if answer has more than 2 decimal places, round it to the nearest 0.01. That means 2 decimal places. That means that's where the 2 is. So I wrote this because you need the next digit out, and the 0 is not big enough to bump it up to 101.43. It's got to be 5 or more. That's all there is to this rounding off. And some rounded it off to 101.4. That's not pennies. I'm sorry, that's not the that's not the nearest 0.01. That's the nearest 0.1. I know this terminology is rather strange, but I hope you can figure it out. So for number 5, again, how many painters are needed to paint 100 houses in 26 weeks? So 26x over 100. Workers times time divided by work. It's right there on page 30. Workers times time divided by work must equal 8 times 22 divided by 17. So again, you've got that. And you don't have to do it this way, but you got to get it right. 100 times 8 times 22 divided by it. Now you can multiply 17 by 26 and put it in memory or something and then divide by memory. I don't care. All I care is that you have a way to work the problem and it works. And let's see, 39.819, 31.819, 2 decimal places. The 9 is the 3rd place, and it is big enough to bump it up. So many people put 39.81. Why? They don't know how to round, and it's not that hard. Just look at the next digit. Is it 5 or more? Yes, then bump it up. That's all there is to it. Number 6, workers times time divided by work is 50x divided by 250 must equal, again, 8 times 12 divided by 17. So I'm going to do 250. And by the way, you can start with 8 times 22 times 250. It doesn't matter. Times 8 times 22 divided by 17. I have a feeling I made a mistake here. This doesn't work right. Look right. 51.7. Oh, 51.764. Now the 4 is not big enough to bump it up to 51.77. Really? Yeah, really. And some people actually have told me this, but the 7 rounds the 4 to a 5, and then the 5 rounds the 6 to a 7. That is not how it works. The only digit that matters is the one immediately to the right of where you're rounding. 4, 7. It's got to be at least 5, 0. Oh, right. Now, some folks were still telling me they rounded this first one to 102. And they said, because you can't really have fractions here, decimals. They decided to round it off. It says if answer has more than 2 decimal places, round it to the nearest 0.01. And the fact that you can't have 0.82. Some people put 40. They said, no, I got to round it to 40 because you can't have 0.82 people. And I have told y'all this more than once, and I'll tell you one more time, and it's on the video. Round it to the accuracy that I asked. And if you don't like the fact that it's not a whole number of people, it's okay. I have mentioned this is for planning purposes. The city planner knows the exact answer, and someone will make the decision to make it 40 or even more or even less and give them more time. It is not your job to round it the way you want to, which is against what I asked you to round it to. It's going to be marked wrong, period. Yikes. No partial credit. Number 7. We've had this several times. You can see a lot of these on page 19 and 20. So this person wants to put some money in the bank. How much? We don't know. You don't have to use algebra. You can call it X if you want. And if you put in X dollars, then the interest you're going to earn is 5% of X, which is 0.05X. And by the way, it's not 0.5X. 0.5X is 50%. Oh. Or you can just think about it. So there's some unknown amount of money. If I put it in the bank, I will get my money back, and I will get 5% interest on it as well. So the unknown amount of the deposit plus 5% of it is 105% of it. Oh, so 1.05 times however much I put in, I want it to equal 3,600. So I have to divide 3,600 by 1.05, and that comes out to be $3,428.57. I rounded it to 3,429. Why? It says right there, to the nearest dollar. And I know I'm being all animated here. I'm not angry. I'm just trying to tell you, you got to read it, work it, read it again, and pay attention to the rounding instructions if there are any. So yeah, if you put 3428.57, I marked it wrong. This will get your attention, I hope, this time. This is the same sort of thing with the donuts again. There's six. It's the same thing. It's the same kind of problem. Number seven, believe it or not. That's the 6.75 a dozen, tax included. The tax rate is 8.25% to the nearest penny. Now, I didn't have to say that because if it's money, you are instructed to round it to the nearest penny, unless I tell you to round it to the nearest dollar or to the nearest something else, $100, for example, to the nearest penny. Okay, well, how much, what was the price before tax? We don't know. That's what the question is. But whatever it was, if we add 8.25% of it to it, so it is X and 0.0825X, if you add it to it, that's understood to be 1X, and 1 plus 0.0825 is 1.0825, reflecting what I've been saying. When you increase a number by 8.25% of it, you wind up with 108.25% of it. As a decimal, it's 1.0825. So you divide that out, 6.75. Look at it, divided by 1.0825 equals 6.235. A lot of you put 6.23. No, that's not the nearest penny. You see the 5 right there? It's right there. It's screaming at you. I'm a 5. You got to bump it up to 6.24. And then you just subtract 6.24 from the total price, 6.75, and that's got to be the tax. And you can write $.51, or you can write 51 cents. Do not write 0.51 cents for this problem. 0.51 cents is about a half a penny. 51 cents is about a half a dollar. We had this problem on the second day of class on page 5, and it's worked out on page 6. And here's the formula. I've come to the conclusion that doing it by the formula makes, even if you don't understand it, but here it is. You put 27,640, you subtract off the fees because they're not taxable. So to do that, 27,640, look at it, okay, subtract 773.92. You got to hit the equal sign. If you say divided by, and your calculator does order of operations, it's going to divide by 1.08, 773.92 divided by 1.08. But you got to say equals because that's what you want to be divided by. And don't go rounding it off until the very end. Equals that. And then you divide that by 0.9. Why? Because 10% off of the sticker price means 90% isn't off. So before you add the tax to it, you've got to figure out, well, I did something terribly wrong, obviously. Let me use my fingers to do this again. I apologize. 27,640 minus 773.92 equals that divided by 1.08 equals divided by 0.9. And it's 27,640. And some people got all torqued out of shape. They said, that's not the sticker price. That's the out the door price. Yeah, well, guess what I did? I manipulated the fees because I wanted the answer to be the same as it started, to give you an example of how tricky math can be. So yes, that is. Interestingly, I'd say about a dozen people altogether in my three classes, they just couldn't believe it, and they put 27,650. I don't know what to say. No, it's 27,640. Now, if it didn't come out even, you would have to round it to the nearest penny. Why? Because it's money. And I didn't say what to round it to. All right. Reminding you on number 10, this is almost exactly the same problem. On page 5, the problem 11, the B's were 12 and the C's were 20. That's the only difference. So the A's and the D's and the F's. And I have called y'all's attention to problem page 5 and 6, number 11, several times. You got to find something that can help you out. Some of you added up these and you didn't get 43. You got 41. Well, I don't know what to say. I've stressed that. If you need to use a calculator, use it. If you don't have to, double check it anyway. 15, 37, 43. Yeah. And if you think it's 42, you're going to miss all of them. So when you do the number of A's divided by 43, you get 0.11. Let me just show you that. We have time. So to change that to a decimal, you move the point 2 places to the right, which you can do on the calculator by multiplying by 100, frankly. Now, it says right here, rounded to the nearest 0.1%. Again, about 15 people throughout my classes, they're like, I'm not doing it. I'm going to round this off to 12. Well, then you missed it. And I have had this problem at least 5 times on quizzes with different numbers, and I've always said rounded to the nearest 0.1%, not to trick you, but you got to do it. What does that mean? 0.1% is not the same as the nearest 0.1. Oh, right. So this is 11.6. Is it too big enough? No, it's got to be 5 or more. That's why it's 11.6. So if you do 10 divided by 43, you get that. And some people put 0.2 right there. They put 0.2%. No, to change a number to a percent, you've got to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. And that's 23.25. Now, is the 5 big enough to make it 23.3? Yes, it is. And the rest of the digits don't have anything to do with rounding it to the nearest 0.1%. Interesting. All right, C's were 22. And you get that. You can probably look at this now and say, well, that's 51.16%. So that's got to be 51.2. And that's absolutely fine. Or you can move the point physically, put it on a piece of paper and put 51.16, and the 6 is not big enough. Again, with your calculator, if you want to do it, you can just move the point 2 places by multiplying by 100. Now, the place that we're going to round it to is where the 1 is. And we look 1 digit to the right. And is that big enough to bump it up to 2? Yes, it is. Okay, 51.2. There were 4 D's. Whoops, that was not good. 4 divided by 43 is that. Move the point 2 places to the right, 9.30. Okay, 9.30. Or you can multiply it by 100. And you get 9.30. Is the 0 big enough? No, it stays 9.3. And there's 2 F's. So 2 divided by 43 equals, you can mentally 4.65. The 5's big enough, 4.7. Or if you want, on paper or calculator, move the point 2 places to the right. We're rounding it to the nearest 0.1%, which is the 6. The 5 is big enough, so you round it to 4.7. And that is all there is to it.